Welcome, Hop Nation. I'm so excited to have this guest today, Jason Richardson, or Dr. Jason Richardson, Dr. J. Rich, as he goes by to his close friends. Now, a bit about Jason. First, welcome, Jason.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for taking the time. You're joining us from just south of San Diego, right?
Actually just north of San Diego, but San Diego is my airport. So Carlsbad, California.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. And for those that don't know who Jason is, I'm going to read a brief bio here. A world champion, Pan Am Games gold medalist, speaker, high performance coach, and psychologist. Jason Richardson's traded in his career as a professional elite athlete, and while he was an athlete, he did his undergrad and graduate degrees, and post-graduation transitioned that into corporate life using his MBA in global marketing to help companies expand their reach. However, he found one problem was, while it was a fit, it wasn't the best one. And this was where he went and pursued his doctorate in psychology. And as much as he has this line in his bio, the winds hadn't stopped, but the focus had shifted. I love that, man. He's had thousands of hours of conversations, aiding people in overcoming their own limitations, coaching Olympic athletes, executives, people who were stuck in the proverbial rut. The one thing that united them all, the desire to do more, get better, and be happier. And that brings us to today's podcast with you, Jason. Welcome.
Thanks.
So
you made it sound like I'm kind of a big deal.
Well, you are.
Well, I know. My wife keeps me honest about that, but it's been a good run, actually. Yeah. So far.
Well, whatever. I'm not. Kids are great for keeping us grounded because they'll remind us, what we are the 99% of the time we aren't on a camera and in the limelight, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So tell us a bit of your founder story. First, how did you get into sport, and what was kind of this path that you've been on to bring you to here? And
so
we're looking forward to hearing about the new book as well.
Yeah, of course.
Give us a bit of the background.
So my sport was bike racing, BMX to be specific. That's it's more popular now. It's Olympic. It became Olympic in 2008, hence going to the Pan American Games in 2007, which is every 4 years pre-Olympics. But what got me into racing was my brother. What got him into racing was a skate park. So he was into skateboarding back in the day, went to go to the skate park by my dad's house, and there was a BMX track next to that. He said, I want to try that. He did. And then I said, I want to do that too. So I did. And that's what got me started racing. And I wasn't that I was competitive or that I wanted to win or there was some deep desire to do anything. I just wanted to race, and I liked being out there. I liked feeling like I was part of something. It was fun. I was terrible, by the way. But it didn't matter that I was terrible because I just wasn't, it was just fun. And it didn't start becoming, I don't want to say serious. It was because I never stopped racing. I started racing when I was probably 5 or 6 years old. But it didn't start becoming serious until I actually won a race, which is kind of by mistake. So, I'd go back and forth between New Jersey and Las Vegas. My parents were divorced, but in New Jersey, you don't always have the pleasure of good weather. But the weather was good leading up to the season. And the track was in a park, and it was kind of open. It was part of the park. So I just asked my mom if I could start riding to the track. This is back when your parents would actually let you ride your bike a few miles away from the house. Unbeknownst to me, I was actually training, even though I was just riding to the track. That just kind of became my thing. And then the first race of the season came and I won. And then I got a little taste of the good life because my brother was the good one. He was the fast one. He had the sponsors. That was good enough for me. But then I got a taste of that and I said, I think I want to do that too. And then I pursued that. I did end up moving back to Vegas to live with my dad. And obviously the West Coast makes it easier to race and ride longer or all year round. And yeah, I just saw myself as being in that group of sponsored, what we'd call factory riders, and then just matriculated on up. And then turning pro was kind of fluky too. I always felt like I could turn pro. I was a top amateur in my sport. But it was kind of like, well, you're going to go to school. How are you going to race and go to school? You're going to have to get a job, blah, blah, blah. And it just turned out that I figured rather than getting a job, working somewhere, doing something, I might as well. I actually turned pro just to say I turned pro. I actually turned pro in high school because there's 2 levels of pro. Long story bearable. Got to college. The part-time job thing wasn't looking good. So I said, okay, let me really try to take a crack at this. And I talked my dad into buying me 2 plane tickets to a couple of races. Bombed out at one race, made like maybe $150. And then the next race I went and I made over $1,000. And then I used that money to stay in San Diego. I didn't go back home. And I used that money to stay in San Diego and rent out a little crawl space in an attic at my friend's place. And all the money I won would go back into getting me to the next race. And then I just rode that wave and it became an actual career, and real sponsorship and real money. And, and that was that. But the cool part was I always went to school and, kind of I don't want to say ill-fated. I mean, it was the backup plan, but in a weird way, going to school was a great excuse to race as long as I did. And racing was a great excuse to go to school because we were making money, but we weren't making NBA or NHL money. It was enough to pay some bills. And, I was able to buy a house and do those kinds of things at a young age, but it wasn't retirement money. So there you go. And I went to school and I purely pursued my interests, which was bikes. And even in school, it was just what I was interested in at the time. And
that's amazing. Now, at that point, you get pro, you get to go, places, become world champion and that. When was that shift and what was, what precipitated the change to, rather than being the king, helping build kings and queens and, a better kingdom through your experience at that point?
So I think so. Well, I know there's a couple questions in there. What can you ask again so I can be fair? No, it's okay.
The switch from being the competitor and it, when you're in that zone, it's sacrifice and it has to be selfish to a certain extent, but you then transitioned to, being a speaker and a performance coach and
got it. So it was only a transition professionally and not so much personality wise.
Right.
Okay. So because I was kind of that guy when I was racing. Yes, there is a selfish piece to being a professional athlete. Yes. And I was also I was also the loudmouth, like, we're not getting paid enough. These rules aren't right. This racetrack is not safe. We're not guinea pigs. So I was the kind of the spokesperson for us. Sometimes I was asked to be, sometimes not. but I was kind of the one looking around going, wait, this is not right. And so I was that dude. I was on the board.
That social
I was a writer.
justice drive.
Yeah, it wasn't even social justice. It was just like, this is dangerous. And it feels like we're being taken advantage of, at the very least, not respected. So let's raise the level here. Anyways, which is actually hard to do, by the way, because the promoters didn't like it, and even some of the riders were kind of like, and as a rider, I can tell you it was a huge distraction to performance. But I say that, but the reason why I'm telling you the story is that there was always a big piece of advocacy for me that was included in this high performance, because I guess what we're talking about is like quality, right? Lifestyle stuff. So even within this lifestyle of pro athlete, it's like, okay, I'm not saying we had it terrible, but yeah, some of the stuff we were doing was really, really dangerous. And some of the stuff back in the day, I say back in the day, I mean, we're Olympic now, but some of it was grossly unprofessional on both sides, right? But it just, given where it was going and the trajectory and the money that was getting thrown into it, and definitely the time and effort that everyone was putting into it, it needed some kind of bumpers on the sidelines, because anyways.
Well, and
so
to
that
move
transition
from the fringe to professional
right, and
status.
from that transition, and it's hard because it was a lifestyle sport, but the transition happened. So I was always in school. I got my undergrad in philosophy, so I'm a thinker, apparently. I got my MBA. I got my MBA because it seemed like it was a practical thing to do. I had the time, I had the money, so I did it. Kept racing. Broke my leg in 2006. There's that. So I broke my femur in 2006. And I am one of the oldest guys, and that's kind of another thing. Oh, you're gonna have to quit, blah, blah. And even me, I'm thinking, okay, I'm done. But I realized when I got home and kind of like took inventory of what happened to me or for me. I kind of was thinking, well, I was looking at purchasing some businesses. I almost bought a tanning salon. If you're watching the video of this and not just listening to it, you'll see the irony in that. But I wasn't MBAing, so to speak. And then I said, okay, well, I don't want this to keep me out of racing. I don't want this to be the reason why I'm not racing, an injury. Even though it would be fine if I bowed out. There wouldn't be any dishonor in that. But if
even on your terms, though.
Yes, and that was the deal. That was the deal. It's like, okay, well, if I want to race again. So, and if it doesn't work out, then I'll make the decision to pull the plug. So I worked my tail off to get back racing. So I shattered my femur in 2006 in February, was racing again in August.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty amazing. That's a whole other side story. But my second or third race back, coming back from Albuquerque, I actually did okay. I made the final, so I'm kind of like back in my group and making the finals and doing decently. And then I just happened to sit next to this couple, and they were coming back from a conference. The husband was a psychologist. The woman was the wife was a marriage family therapist. Got to talking, and I'd worked with a sports psychologist throughout my career, so I'd done the work on the other side, and I understood it. And then I just started doing the math in my head, and that's where the business piece came out. It's like, wait, this is pretty good for me if I do that. And I started asking more questions. Well, how do you become a psychologist? Because I knew that I didn't see myself opening some business with inventory and line items and SKUs and managing a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And I just felt like from a business perspective, this is great. It's just me. It gives me some leeway. I can teach or talk or coach or write or whatever, take on clients. I knew how much I paid my sports psychologist. So I'm like, okay, not a bad living. And the cool part, the checks and balances, was I could plug myself back into my world and become, the guy in action sports. But the checks and balances was, my job is to help you get what you want. And that seems super fair to me, super fair. So it's like, I want things, right? Whether they're material or otherwise, I want things, and those things cost money. Okay, well, if I'm going to do something to get things, why not help other people get their things that they want? And that just seemed like a fair exchange to me. So I got off the plane and pretty much told my family I'm going back to school for the third time. There was a bit of I don't want to say an upheaval, but definitely like, oh gosh, here we go again. But I had 2 years left. I had a year left on my contract with Haro Bikes at the time. So I had the time to kind of, and I'd been to school before, but they thought I meant psychiatrist, which is MD. And it's like, no, not 8 more years of school, kind of like 3.5, 3 if I really put the pedal to the metal. Not including like training and getting my hours, but at that point I'd at least get some money for that as a income. Anyways, so that's what I did. I jumped right into that. And so that's 2007. 2006, I had the conversation on the plane. 2007, invited to the Pan Am Games. I won. Cool. Yay me. 2008, retired. 2010, doctored. 2011, licensed. 2012, flying to the Olympics with as a credentialed psychologist for a federation to help an athlete. I had 2 athletes actually qualify, and one didn't end up competing because they got in a horrific accident, literally, and could not go to the Olympics, even though they qualified for their country, for the USA. That was a sad story, but yeah, and then found myself at the next. Well, I shouldn't say the next 3, but I had athletes in, let's see, London, Rio, and Tokyo. And yeah, and then along the way, through this and that, I did do clinical work as well. They don't, when you're getting your internship, they don't just throw you in with the San Diego Padres. Big surprise. But yeah, I did my internship, did a lot of clinical work, and I'm glad I did that actually, than just going strictly sport. Because I think it gave me a really good window into human behavior, human thought, a lot of fundamental things, psychologically.
And the limiting beliefs that
correct,
it doesn't
correct,
matter
all
if
of that,
you're at
all
the
of that
top
stuff.
of the game,
Yeah,
or someone's
yeah.
suffering.
So I saw the
with
full
mental illness.
spectrum of not only development, but the full spectrum socioeconomically. I saw how all those things, how everyone's human at every level and at every price point, which was really cool. And also, I think it gave me an advantage because the athlete part, I don't want to say it was easy, but I lived that intimately. I'm acutely aware of what an athlete goes through from birth to earth. But to have that clinical piece, like that real rigorous clinical psych traditional piece, was something that I feel like I bring to it, because the other piece of this is I was the guy who had to figure out what was next. And that's the other thing is, regardless of how much money you make, guess what? You're the guy or girl or the them or whatever you identify as that has to figure out, should you choose, what's next. And that's the deal. So, and I get charged up around that stuff. I'm okay with a bit of uncertainty. So tapping into that, helping somebody figure out what their next is, and then also using that clinical stuff to figure out what their limiting beliefs might be, what their hangups might be, what the issues are, and creating a plan around that is just awesome. And I can tell you firsthand, being on deck at the X Games or the Olympics, sometimes the performance plan isn't just, okay, visualization and this ritual that we create, which we do, and it's specific to them. Sometimes the performance plan is like, okay, we want to make sure that dad and this person have somehow reconciled their relationship before we qualify, because this person isn't going to get to the Olympics if their dad's not going to be in the stands. Like, that's just the truth of it.
It's the distraction.
Yep. Yeah. It's the distraction. It's the incompleteness. It's the unresolved issues. It's the unfinished business. And I just love talking about that stuff. So I know you asked like one question and I went crazy on a tangent, but that's how, awesome. I guess that's my, I guess there's a lot of origin there, but that's the story. And I kind of speed line through some of it, but that's the story.
I mean, literally you're taking us through your entire life, and neither one of us is 20 anymore. So that does take some time.
It does take a minute. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're supposed to cut off the last 10 years, like if it's like 10 years of your CV, but
no way.
I don't agree either.
I think if anything, the first 10 would drop off, but it's all relevant and foundational to build on. And I don't know about you, but whether it's a success or a setback, and I don't even like the word failure, because it's all learning and it's all useful, success and failure. So to me, that makes no sense. I mean, can we be more concise? I'm always guilty and called out on that, but sometimes it's important to know enough of the story, right? Because there's a credibility and a congruence to the story in the background. And that's what I appreciate hearing, because even in our conversations before inviting you on the show, I didn't know a lot of that background, and it's not stuff that you can put on all the marketing, be it the website, brochures, like you just can't capture that, and it needs to be authentic and in the moment. And right, I mean, you weren't prepared for that particular question, right?
No.
I mean, so that's what I love about doing a show like this, is it's authentic and shit's gonna come out.
There's it's spontaneity is good.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's go now. You have 2 books now that you've published, correct? The first one was It's All BS.
Correct.
You can tell the audience a bit about that, but I know you have one that just came out, which is More, Better, Happier. And literally, that's the tagline and really the ethos, if I'm understanding correctly, for the work you do now, whether it's with athletes or the corporate.
That's just period. It's
period. I love it.
That's just it. It is that. So It's All BS. I had the great fortune of working. So towards the end of my tenure in getting my hours to become licensed, I did work with a gentleman, Dr. Rob Irwin, who's a sports psychologist. He was kind of more on the golf side, doing the neurofeedback. And I had done a lot of kind of agency and clinic work that way, but he was, in the sports world, and working with a different clientele. And so I was able to get some of my last remaining hours with him, but we kind of became partners in a sense, because I just kind of saw this thing that was in the office, is train your brain, literally took it down and blew out as like dust. And his dad's a board certified surgeon. His dad is was Jedi, rest in peace, Bob Irwin. But it's like, it's just this seminar my dad and I used to do. And I'm thinking, and so my marketing brain, because I still like creating things and I always have ideas. I'm like, what's it about? And so it's this whole neuroscience thing about belief systems. That's the BS, belief systems. And I'm thinking, well, I got some stuff to say about that, because I'm kind of proof in the pudding. We all are, really, but I had a lot of stories that were proof in the pudding about how this stuff really plays out in work and in sport and XYZ 1, 2, 3. And so he gave me my first opportunity at getting in front of people and talking, in a kind of seminar speaking workshop atmosphere, that was not clinical. And so we did that. So, and I'd always wanted to write a book. And so I basically just, that was It's All BS, right? So, and chapter 8, using, his tool, the belief matrix, and kind of working your way out of reverse engineering a setback, so to speak, and what got you there from a thought process and action process. That was great. And so we worked together on that book. And so I give him full credit on that. And then and then we parted ways. We're still great friends, but parted ways business wise. He kind of stuck with the more clinical and kind of golfy sports stuff, and my life just kind of got a little, how's the word? I don't want to say hectic, but I had a lot of things going on. I'll just put it that way. So I was.
that sounds hectic.
Yeah, well, it wasn't hectic because it was under control, in that I was speaking more, and I chose to get out of clinical work and focus more on coaching. And I was actually, at the time, I was announcing for the BMX, for all the World Cups, so all the international races. I was the Charles Barkley of my sport. I was doing the play-by-play on the live stream and on the TV, and it was great. So that's just kind of where our worlds went. That said, though, it one of the groups I was coaching was a group of physicians looking to build businesses online, kind of get out of their brick and mortar. And I was one of the coaches, a hired gun, wasn't my group. But one of my talks to them, it just kind of hit me like, anyone in the helping profession, and I vetted it pretty well. I didn't do exhaustive research, but I vetted it between, accountants and service professionals, basically.
Absolutely.
And when I'm getting to the more, better, happier piece, I'm getting to that. So, and it's like, when they come to us, they're looking for one thing. They're looking for more, or they're looking for better, or they're looking for happier, right? I just want the raise, or the better job, or the car, or whatever it is. Or it's like, oh, you know what? I'm not in shape anymore. I'm not, I used to do this, now I can't do that. Or, there's some kind, so that's like a better piece. And then, or they're just like, I have everything, but how come I'm not, happy or fulfilled or satisfied? Yeah. And
how come I've burned through 5 marriages and none of
right. And so I'm like, that's it. Like, it's more, better, happier. Everyone's searching for one thing, but they're looking in that one area. So yes, a new job is awesome and more money is awesome. Why do you want the new job and the more money, right? Yes, being able to lift a freight train on your back under the squat rack is awesome. Why do you want to lift a freight train on a squat rack under your back? Yes, your wife actually wanting to go to sleep with you at night, and I'm being nice by saying it that way, is a good thing. Brilliant. Why, right? And I honestly, I'm going to tell you now, I don't know why. You know why, right? But the thing is, it's you're not just looking for the car. You're not just looking to get back in shape. You're not just looking to fix a couple relationships. You're looking for the whole enchilada, man. Like that's what you're really looking for, but you're not saying that. And we're not trained to say that, because a lot of us think like, oh, who am I to ask for this? Or, oh, I already have so much. Or, oh, we've kind of, through no fault of our own, we've all kind of accepted compromise a little bit too much. And I know the world, my head's not in the clouds on this, okay? So it's not like I'm saying you can have it all. But my thing is like, you kind of mostly do have it all. It's
you
just
can still be grateful.
yes,
And
yeah.
desire to improve,
Correct,
learn.
correct, correct.
It,
So it's like, how do
because
we
the minute we
access that?
stop growing, we actually atrophy.
Right, right.
So
So
this is a
that's
gift
the
to
yeah. So
yourself.
that's the genesis of it. So that's the more, better, happier. And I just kind of drew this Venn diagram, and there's, and I was like, okay, so how does this work? But and and it's funny because my wife's, she's immersed in her career. And she's more introverted, and she'll kind of say, because I showed her the title of the book. She's like, I don't know about more, it's not really, it's about, because she's like, it's kind of trending towards this and that, kind of like this, what is that trend where it's like about getting rid of all your stuff and living in a minimalism. I was like, yes. And I agree with that. I appreciate that. However,
to your previous point, what's the motivation and what's the thinking?
Not only that, but you still want more of less. If you want to be a jerk,
there's something
but not
else
only that,
getting.
but
There's a payoff.
Not only that. I mean, like, again, I've done the clinical work. I've been in the homeless shelters. Like, for you, for us to have the luxury of getting rid of stuff and being like, oh, look how evolved I am that I can get rid of all my stuff and still be happy. It's like, yeah. Meanwhile, there's someone out there who could use some stuff, like, for real. Like, and God bless, like, and I hope they want that stuff, because them wanting that stuff might help them get out of a place that is very bad for them. You see what I'm saying? But whatever, absolutely. You still want more. You might want more of less. They might want more of more. But guess what? You both want that more because it provides you with the one thing that you think is more important to you in your heart and in your soul. And that's the thing. So it's like, let's stop playing one field at a time, which is like, I go to work and I put on my work hat, and then I go home and I put on and let's actually acknowledge that this stuff overlaps, because it does. And if you're a person that is somewhat decent, who kind of cares, right? Like, low baseline over here, let's acknowledge that.
As long as you aren't a narcissist or sociopath,
right?
It's all just within the me bubble.
Yeah, for sure. Let's acknowledge that, and let's play the whole field. And let's put on our big boy pants and our big girl pants and recognize, like, we're going to get some scuffs along the way. We're going to take some hits. And that's part of the deal. And I'm a run-on sentence guy. And you can still be happier despite the fact that you might not have won today, right? Or might not have got what you wanted today, because we're playing the whole field, right? So in this business of life, there are many line items.
One thing I'm hearing is we're playing a bigger game and a bigger field, and it's not just all about us. At some point of maturity, we realize it's not all about us. Whether it's you get married, you start learning that lesson, start having kids, it magnifies things a little at that point as well, and vice versa. I mean, you have people come in and out of our lives, for whatever reason. And I appreciate that. And a lot of, be it corporate or sport, has traditionally focused in on the skill set, be it physical and technical prowess, along with mindset. But we have sayings like playing with your heart and soul, and the team stuff and relational, and people forget the heart set and the soul set side of it, which when you tap that's the it factor. At the end of the day, when we talk about someone with the it factor that no one can pinpoint it, they aren't just playing with half a set. They've got that whole congruent piece together that supercharges them almost.
Yeah, it's well, it's been referred to as flow state, or but when you're there, all of you is in it, right? And you're also recognizing that you're part of it, not, you're in it, and you're bringing all of that to the thing, whatever that thing is. Right. So yeah, so the MBH ethos, the more, better, happier thing, is I can't harp on it enough. And it's so funny because I thought this would be I thought I was kind of done with writing, but it's kind of really just opened up a can now that this one's done, which is pretty interesting. So I already have like content brewing in the back of my brain as to, how to continue going with it. But anyways, that's, I don't know if I explained MBH, but that's the deal. So it's
well, and
us acknowledging that
Venn diagram behind you. So let's break down the component parts quickly, and let's see the cover of the book.
Yeah. Let's see it. So I'm taking out a picture of the Venn diagram, so I don't have to try to look through the screen, but
we'll make sure we can show some of.
Well, there we go.
There we go. Excellent. We'll put a link to the book in the podcast.
So yeah, the Venn diagram is just that. So there's more, there's better, there's happier. And you'll see where they converge. So where more and better converges, we find success. Because in order for you to get more of a thing, chances are you probably might want to become better at some things. There's no avoiding that. Where better and happier converge, you see health, right? So generally, if you're getting better at a thing, and your relationships are strong, and you're kind of already appreciating the things you do have, right? As you see yourself improving, that's going to lead to a healthier, at least a better emotional, mental health outcome, right? Where happier and more converge, that's where we find fulfillment, right? So you are getting acknowledged at work, or maybe you bought your dream home, and you things have never been better with your wife and kids. Like, I gotta think that's pretty nice place to come home to in your heart, right? But where they all converge is the one thing, to take Curly from City Slickers. I'm aging myself here, that movie, but it's the one thing, and it's not for me to decide what that is, and I don't even know that it is something you can articulate. It's something, and if you can, great, but that's what you want. That's the pocket you want to be in. That's the sweet spot. And like I said, we get caught up in thinking the one thing is in the better part. Okay, well, if I could just fit in the bikini, if I could just, be my college playing weight, or we think it's, this car is going to make the difference, or this next deal is going to be it, or the happier. Well, how come I'm not happier? Well, let me I don't know, fabricate some kind of experience, or unfortunately most people kind of self-medicate some kind of experience for that missing component, right? And that's not it. It's like recognizing that all of it is in play. And it's not about juggling. It's about acknowledging what's all in play, and it's about honoring that and moving towards that. It's expanding the field. You're playing the game, not the inning, right? And it's a bigger game.
You're redefining the rules of the game, and that's what I like. I mean, literally, on my site, I talk about becoming an unstoppable force, and when you're in that flow state, you feel unstoppable. You're no longer thinking about practice and what you have. You're just showing up, and it's go time.
Yeah.
Right. But it's in that state, and I love that word fulfillment, because a lot of people are talking about work-life balance, and we want success and health, but that fulfillment, I've actually in some training in the past broken it out and said full. So with more, we're feeling full, and when we have more, we can do more things for others because we know the science of giving creates greater happiness than actually getting, which is, I don't know if it's irony, but it's pretty cool. So from a place of abundance and blessing, we can actually bless others, which is a side benefit, just like mentoring. We, give to people, but anytime you've done that, we get as much out of it, if not more, than the person on the other side a lot of times. So there's that fullness, but then fill is kind of the active part. So there's the capacity being full, and then the fill is the dynamic and adaptability and the building and the action part. And then where those meet, where you're getting capacity and the adaptability and action, that's where there's congruence and it's met. So it's fulfilled, met versus meant. We can just drop the N.
Drop off the N. Yeah, that you mentioned work-life balance, which is interesting. And in the previous book, I talk about that. And we're all striving for this balance. That's
actually BS, and that's not a belief system. I just think it's straight up.
Yeah, well, I have a little stick figure drawing in there where there's somebody on a teeter totter.
Yeah.
And guess what? They're they're working hard at not doing anything, balancing. And it's like, look, there's some stuff behind you that you don't want, and there's stuff in front of you that you do want. I don't care what the stuff is. Could be emotional, could be physical, material, whatever. But there's stuff you don't want, and there's stuff you do want, and you're trying to keep balance, right? Meanwhile, your time, which you think you control, which you do, but we'll more than that. But it's
you prioritize. You don't control, like time management or control. Like
it's priority management, right?
Certain things. Same
it's
with
creating your
balance.
important list. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, like, if you run
lateral pie with pizzas, I mean, just think. Like in our work lives, the number of hours in a 24-hour day that are sleep, and then at work when we're in a vocational state, how many hours are left? And then there's how many of those other areas that people attribute to balance and, roles or whatever. I mean,
I have a completely unbalanced life right now. I've always had it. I went full throttle into this bike thing. I still do. It's not balanced. It's not even normal physically. It might not, it's healthy to pedal, but some of the decisions I make, risks I take are still, like, I wear a helmet, right? For a reason, because it's but that provides me with balance, right? And I think what happens is people are looking, sorry about my dog. People are looking externally to control what's outside of them. And the balance isn't in the control of the external. The balance is in the control of you, right? And being sturdy. So I want people to run full steam towards the things they want. And I'm not saying like I'm not saying like some hedonistic want. I'm saying like the real things you want, right? The heavy stuff. And there's going to be some stuff you don't want that's going to chase you along the way. But my guess is if you're moving toward what you want, you actually get some of that stuff, you'll be better equipped to deal with it versus like this like, okay, let me balance everything. Let me try to keep everything in order. It's like, well, I'm one for making your bed. I'm one for neat and tidy, but I want neat and tidy brain space and neat and tidy heart space and neat and tidy conscious space, right? Or consciousness space. I want you to feel neat and tidy when you look at yourself in the mirror, mostly.
Well, I think it almost creates that sense of dissatisfaction because you're trying to do something that isn't logical at all. And if you think of balance, right? And there, let's just say two halves, work and life. We'll just call it that because that's a term out there. And the fulcrum is in the middle. If the weight is equal on both sides, it's in balance. But life doesn't roll that way. There's times where, maybe there's a family emergency or a tragedy, a death of a parent or something where, the weight goes heavier over there and we have to shift, the focus over there. And, if you think of a balance, you can have more weight on one side, but if you shift the fulcrum, it stays balanced as if equal weight. And if we change the word fulcrum to focus, and just keep moving our focus to where it needs to be prioritized in the time.
Right. It is. And that is to understand, right? So you're not the one on top of the thing on the teeter-totter. You're the one supporting the teeter-totter. Right. And you're recognizing that you recognizing that it is your responsibility to adjust when it's called for is part of the deal. That's may not be balanced, but it's freaking sure-footed. It's settled, right? It's strength. And accepting that it's gonna suck at times is okay, because we've also been trained somehow, and to kind of, I don't say kind of, we've been trained to think, especially now with younger people, I've noticed that getting the right grades and the right job and the right school and all this kind of sunshine and rainbows is the standard. I'm not saying it's not wanted, and I'm not saying don't go for that. I'm saying that is only part of it. If you can recognize that this whole human experience is much richer, inclusive of the stuff you may not like, you actually will be happier than going off.
Be resilient.
You will be more, and you will be better, and you will be happier in the long run, because
entitlement mentality will never get that to you. And coddling people, and trying to make it easier on ourselves or easier on others is absolute BS. And there's a direct correlation between the coddling and this entitlement mentality and the move away even from competition, and I mean like grades or, ribbons for placing and stuff. Because the minute you get into adult life, that's still how things are played. And if we haven't prepared, youth and children for that in advance, one, we certainly can't complain if they come to us with an entitlement mentality. Mm-hmm. And we can't, fault them for crumbling the minute they hit a challenge or obstacle or setback.
Right. And I'm not here to fault you for that. I'm here to say that this is part of the deal, man. Like, but you mentioned irony, but that's the thing. Like, irony and paradox is kind of built into the game. Like, there is no relishing in glory without any kind of like, oh man, that hurt, or oh wow, we did lose the first 2 games of the season and we came back. Like, there is, I'm not saying don't go for the perfect season. I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm just saying let's not get our underwear in a bunch when we hit those ripples. Like, let's figure out how to take a hit. And it's not, and this isn't just like a grit conversation, but this is just recognizing, or asking you to recognize, any person to recognize that a rich life includes all of the experiences of life. I mean, this book, right? It's got a smiley face on it, and it's bright, and it was born. I mean, the other piece of it is like, it is a letter to my kids. Yeah. There are no I think there's like maybe 2 references in there. Like I'm channeling here, and it's like, I don't, sure, I could leave my kids, well, maybe they'll get some money, maybe they'll get a house or a property, but like, this is what they're getting. they got it, right? But that was born out of, me going through, my dad having cancer, and then, maybe business wasn't so great during some times. And it's like, like real, right, real life stuff, me not measuring up as a dad or a husband, and just kind of like struggling with all of that, and all of that stuff, right? Because I have standards, right? And I wasn't living up to my standards. And it's about as a sobering and honest approach to like really playing this thing for what it's worth that you can get. I mean, it's not pie in the sky, but that's the thing. We've been sold pie in the sky. And it's like, look, if you're expecting sunshines and rainbows all day, and then you're sitting there wondering why you're bummed out, or like you're not that fulfilled, it's like, well, because you are literally avoiding these other things in life that, while they may suck to go through, add so much richness to the experience. You are avoiding the responsibility, or avoiding the pain, or avoiding the whatever it is you think is terrible, is not helping you in the strength category, in the better category.
I would think that
Yeah.
winning that gold at the Pan Am Games after breaking your femur meant a heck of a lot more to you, especially in hindsight,
Yeah.
than had that negative experience of breaking your femur not happened.
So crazy thing, right? So I turned pro in, well, I'm not gonna give years, but I could, but I'm just not gonna give years because I don't want to get it wrong because it's been so long ago. But I won the world championships in '94. Okay. That was my first ever world championships I've ever raced. And I was the youngest person to win it in the pro in that category. And I've always wanted to, I believed I could, and I did. Great, yay me. And at the time, I couldn't tell you how I did it, right? I didn't know how I did it. I'm sure there's an answer, but I couldn't articulate it. Then you fast forward or slow forward to 2007 from 1994, and I go to the Pan Am Games, and I wasn't the first guy on the list that they asked. And, part of the reason why I was invited was because they knew at the time I was one of the few organized enough to have my paperwork in order, because at that time you needed the shots and the this and the that and the visa and the send it out. I had my stuff together. And it was kind of this new thing, like the Olympic thing, and what's this? It was like, but I knew exactly how I was going to do it, and I knew exactly how to win it. That was the difference. And I also knew what it meant to me. And I also accepted that responsibility to me. And I was willing to carry that load. And I was willing to feel like I couldn't breathe. And I was willing, and all of that stuff. There wasn't no avoiding the fact that it would have been a waste of a trip, more or less, if I gotten anything less than really first. Because I mean, I would have been like, even a medal would have been like, because at the end of the day, it wasn't the Olympics. Like, you better win this thing. Yeah. And you are the oldest guy, and it is close to the end. And that's the deal. And it sucked to think about that. I didn't dwell on it, but I definitely accepted that as part of the game.
Now,
right? And the willingness
because
to take
you
that
retired
on,
in 2008, Jason, did
Yeah.
you know that you were going to retire in 2008 before, or was that after? And because it's a lot easier to do it after coming off of the high, knowing what you just said.
So where I was in school, it was pretty interesting. Where I was in school, so many interesting stories. So where I was in school, it was in 2008, was I was still in school, and I was a few months I was several months away from having enough hours in school to be able to work as a therapist or counselor for any kind of anything. And I was looking for a paid internship because I don't do broke well. So
Pretty hard to do in Southern California.
yes, yeah. After you're already like homeowning and one kid and another one on the way, that kind of deal. So so it was pretty interesting. I said, okay, well, if I have to, what, I'll Starbucks it or whatever, and just get to the point to where I can, get that paid internship somewhere. Right. And so even from a racing standpoint, I was planning to race kind of indefinitely-ish, even a little bit sponsorless. Like I kind of had some ducks in a row. I knew somebody that would make me a bike. I kind of could get a uniform deal over here and this deal over there. And maybe I don't go to have an abbreviated schedule, but that kind of thing.
Right.
And then anyway, so as I was looking for internship possibilities at the end of 2008, but there's still like a 6-month gap of like nothing. I just came across this job posting as a marketing agent at a marketing agency and looking for a brand manager. So it's like mid-level management, and it was a company that used psychometric this and that and social and change. And I'm like, and just the job, it sounded very startup, sounded very cool, hip. And I said, I could do that job. And I just kind of went in deeper and deeper. And I just ended up filling out the application, which took like an hour and a half. But just, anyways. So next thing I know, so I go to the job interview, and this is before the 2008 season ended, really. And it went well. And then I remember being at the last race of the season, and I'm kind of done, really, just with the season at least. And I remember being on the gate in my second heat, just thinking, I think I'm going to get that. Like it just hit me out of just a bolt, just like, I think I'm going to get that job. And then sure enough, so that was the November of 2008, December of 2008, I was on a plane to Chicago, essentially working as a brand manager for a marketing agency. And then, so didn't get an internship, it was too soon, but ended up with a pretty high paying job in corporate. With like zero work experience. That was my first real job. And then it came time for me to get my internship. And then I lopped into that and found a paying internship. And what was so cool about it was like all these little experiences I had, the racing and the cultural stuff, which we never even got into, and the working with a psychologist, and then the having the multiple degrees, and not being so young looking for these internships. Like I just came out smelling like roses after all, because I just was experienced, and I didn't even like factor that into the fact that, oh yeah, you're going to be working with people about their life and helping get their life in order. Like I didn't factor that the 26-year-old just out of school isn't going to show up the same way that a 34-year-old is going to show up. And so I'm just like kind of I'm not going to say getting it easily, but I was walking in, like every internship I got was paid and paid well. Didn't get hard till I opened my own business. That's when the money stopped. But anyways, we kind of got off on a tangent there. But yeah, but the point to all that is like, there's these things you want in life, okay? Yeah. And I say you as in a person, whether it's a Pan Am Games or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be on any kind of global level, or it's what you want, whatever you want. There's these things you want, right? Meaningful things. And in order to do, there's a skill set required, like you said, and talent, but there is a responsibility to that, right? And it's in accepting the responsibility to what you want. That's where we want, that's where the meat is, right? Yeah. Because there's plenty of people #living their best life on Instagram. But I don't know if that's what they want. It might be fun, but is that really what you want, right? And I talk to people all the time. It's like, yeah, it'd be nice to have, it'd be nice if, and that's great. Like for me, it'd be nice if I flew private. But at the end of the day, I'm not really working to get myself to a position to where I can own a private jet. Like I don't want it. Like it's not, it'd be cool, but that's not like if I search in my desires, that's not a desire of mine. It's just not.
Right.
So
It's
I can
not going
set
to
that
keep you
aside.
up at
Right,
night or
right,
get you up in the
right.
morning.
Exactly. And the thing is, we're kind of a little dishonest with ourselves about what we really want. And we're also kind of like doing these things that we think we should want or that other people might want for us.
Yeah.
And that's how we kind of get out of congruence. And that's how we kind of get off kilter. And that's how we kind of find ourselves working at a place for 15 or 10 or 5 or whatever the years are. And we're like, ugh, you know, and God bless the person who does show up every day and goes to work and pays their bills and just deals with it. And especially if you don't like it, like for sure, like hats off, like, because that is something I cannot do. And I respect the crap out of that. I also say though, that is still not sustainable, right, for you. And so this book is about really taking an honest look at that, you know, at that world and what you want and what you're about. And just, and the funny thing is, it's not like about changing these big things and making these, you know, I'm not saying quit your job tomorrow.
Well, everyone
I'm saying,
comes at a different starting point.
correct.
And that.
Correct.
So it's contingent, or there's a context and a relevance to anyone.
Yes.
Regardless of place in life.
Correct.
You could be in some small village making $1 a day in Ghana, and you might be doing something else, you know, elsewhere. So,
correct.
With the last little bit of time we have, tell me, what are 3 success principles that you use for yourself now to maintain your high level of performance in your own life?
Wow, success principles.
or habits.
Yeah, habits. So I know it sounds gonna sound pretty corny, but one is honesty. That's one. And harder than you think. Like you know, part of the reason why I did the things I did was because I just didn't want to look like a liar. And I know that sounds bad, but like, you know, I told myself that I would go to get my MBA, so I'm getting it. Like, you know, so basically be a person of your word, right? I guess that's kind of a play on honesty.
Well, and you don't want to have regrets. And if you're dishonest or out of integrity.
Yeah. So there's that. And I'm not talking about, like, I know if you're planning a surprise party, lie all day long. I get it. But you know, be a person of your word. That's one. Another one is to be honest about what you want, or at least don't be scared to search for that.
What you really want to.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, once you get past once you get past like, you know, your favorite car, or I mean, but like what you like, you're like what's desired, right?
Yeah, not in here and in your soul, which is
correct.
Right? Yeah.
And if I were to push for a third one, for me, it would be to say something about it, or do something about it. More like do, because it's not always speaking. It's do something about it. Something.
Step up and
I'm not here to judge how big or small the step is or what it is, but move toward the thing. Yeah.
I like it. You know, and the beauty of those 3 are, when you hear it, it sounds simple, but we can.
Simple ain't easy.
Simple is not easy.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and that's that's the difference. And people hear it and go, oh, well, it sounds easy, so I'll do it. And then they find out, oh, it's hard. And then people will give up too easy or too quick, and they don't enjoy that more, better, or happier because they've given up too easy or too quick. And sometimes it's just getting through that initial, when the majority of people will fold the tent and go look, for a greener piece of grass to lay their tent.
Right.
Well, Jason, thank you so much for the time today. There are so many nuggets. I'm looking forward to ordering the book. You'll have to email me the link so I can
the link. There's
it'll
go on. There's a pre-sale link. I don't know when this is coming out, but April 12th is the release, the official. And then give me your address, and I'll send a 4th copy to Canada. There's some Canadian friends so you'll get an early one, a pre-release one. Yeah.
And I know we'll be in touch on the other stuff.
Yeah. And thanks for letting me take your time. I know I get excited and a bit manic and tend to go long, so I appreciate it.
No, it was fantastic. And it was great to learn more about you and kind of the path to here. And there's a lot of nuggets. If you were sharing and it sucked, I would have figured out a way to.
Let's wrap it up.
It wasn't. I mean, I was literally enthralled. So, thank you. And thank you, Hawk Nation, and everyone for listening in, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Take care, everyone.